It's week 8 in the NFL. We're here at the Kennedy Greenhouse, and we're ready to talk about some of the things that happened last week. And we're going to start with a new segment. It was actually Justin's idea, and I'm very excited about it. We're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, guys, what was your good from last week?
My good is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they've kind of quietly snuck up to a solid 4-3 record. They dismantled the Colts last week. They had a big win against Pittsburgh a few weeks ago. They just played really well right now. So I think right now they are the front runners in that AFC South division.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Carson Wentz as my good. I believe it's his second year in the league, and he's putting up MVP numbers and he's taking a team that was really not one of those teams expected to make it far this year, and really have made them a real contender for the NFC.
Interesting. My good is the Raiders-Chiefs. They gave us a Thursday night football game last week. That was incredible. It was a great matchup. The Chiefs ended up losing to the Raiders, and the Raiders are now back in the swing of things in that division after suffering 4 losses without their quarterback. And the touchdown at the end was great. Crabtree performed well. Cooper performed well. It was just one of those great games, and I think that's a big good for the NFL because most of the times those games are not that great, but it was a fantastic matchup. Now let's go to the bad. So guys, what was the bad from last week?
My bad is the Denver Broncos. Their offense just has not looked good at all. Seems like ever since Peyton Manning left, they just haven't been able to get something going. And Trevor Siemian had a bad game against the Chargers, and they just haven't really impressed me. And in that division, you have KC, who obviously is very good this year, and then an Oakland team like we just saw is very dangerous. So I think there could be some trouble up in Denver this year if nothing changes.
The New York Jets for me are my bad. After starting off 3-2, they've lost 2 AFC division rivalry games. One is a little controversial with the Patriots game, but they're starting to look like the Jets we were expecting again. Josh McCown you can always rely on him with the game-killing interceptions. But they're a little bit disappointing with seeing that they had a little bit of potential to not be as bad as they were. Yeah. But they're starting to look like the team we expected.
Yeah, they definitely got off to that hot start, and then now they can't perform in the clutch so far, and that's been kind of what's hurt McCown throughout his career, and it's definitely hurt the Jets the last couple of seasons. My bad would be the Atlanta Falcons. You started off the season 3-0, but now you're just sitting there at what are they, 3-3 now? They were awful against the Patriots, and the Patriots' defense is not that good. They've only put up 7 points on the Patriots, and now they're sitting in the middle of the pack in that division, a half game behind the Panthers and a game behind the Saints right now. So, I mean, right now they really got to get things going if they want to make it to the top of that jam-packed division. Now, let's get to the really bad, the ugly. Who were your ugly performers last week?
Well, my ugly is actually your bad. I put the Atlanta Falcons for ugly. They just look, like you said, horrible against New England, who has one of, if not the worst defense right now in the league. And Julio Jones, they couldn't get to Julio Jones, and they have a weapon like that, and they can only score 7 points against a historically bad NFL defense. And so I don't know if maybe it's a Super Bowl hangover, if it's coaching, whatever it is, but they just, like I said, they've lost 3 in a row. They're just not the same, and they're in a tough division with the Saints all of a sudden looking good. The Panthers, you never know. They're always around, and you can't count out the Bucs either. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on with the Falcons.
It's funny you mentioned the Panthers because the Panthers and the Chicago Bears, that game as a whole, I think, was my ugly. Yeah. I mean, the Chicago Bears putting up 12 yards of total offense in the entire second half. That's inexcusable. I mean, I know you have a rookie quarterback, but just run the ball if that's the case. I mean, the Panthers, Cam Newton, the opening drive seemed like they were marching down the field. It was all right, but that interception fumble, that really seemed to shake the Panthers' offense for the entirety of the game. Just not a good game to watch at all. And you have Cam Newton and the Panthers, who have high expectations this season. They had a disappointing 6-10 season last year, so they're hoping to bounce back this year. But again, Trey mentioned a few weeks ago on this show that the the Panthers have a very predictable offense, and they should not be this predictable when you have weapons like Kelvin Benjamin, Christian McCaffrey, Cam Newton. So that just game as a whole is just ugly.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. My ugly is just the Panthers, because, I mean, you kind of expect it from the Bears at this point, but you're looking at the Panthers, and the Panthers were awful last week. They moved the ball down the field, yes. They couldn't put the ball in the back of the end zone. They had turnovers galore, and they lost to a team that only had 12 total yards. That should not happen. They have played really well at times this year. They beat teams like the Patriots, and they lost to the Eagles, but they beat the Lions. So they play up to their opponents, but they did not even show up at Soldier Field. So for me, the ugly is that Cam Newton-led team that did not perform well last week. Now, moving on, so speaking of last week, though, who was y'all's players of the week or player of the week last week?
I had Amari Cooper, and excuse me, in his breakout game last week in that comeback against Kansas City. He had, I think, over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And like we said earlier, Oakland, they struggled a little bit early with their injuries, but I think they're definitely still in that contention.
All right, what about you?
For me, it'd be Ezekiel Elliott. He's having an up and down season off the field.
Yeah.
He's been suspended and unsuspended like 3 times, it feels like now. But he was able to put up 147 total yards and 3 total touchdowns. And it's really impressive for a really young man to put up those numbers with all the controversy surrounding him and the situation he's in right now. So for him to put that all aside and put on a game like he did was impressive.
Yeah, both those guys had great performances, but I'm going to go with Carson Wentz. He killed my Redskins on Monday night. He threw for 268 yards and 4 touchdowns. He really led that team. That team's now 6-1. They're in the driver's seat for the NFC East. They're really in the driver's seat for the NFC for at least a bye week at this point, because their schedule just gets easier down the road. All they have to do is beat the Cowboys once, and they'll lock up the division at this point of the year, which is crazy to say. So Carson Wentz is definitely my guy. But that doesn't wrap things up. But now we're going to set it on over to Devin Gobeil for the injury update.